Hey everybody, welcome to Money's No Object. I'm your host, Dylan Howell. This is episode number 152 of our YouTube channel and podcast, and I cannot be more excited to continue sharing with you guys personal finance topics that I think could be useful for you in your long-term financial journey. Today, we are going to be talking about the match, right? And specifically a 401k, 403b type match. And this is the type of match that is a part of the financial action plan. We're going to talk about why the match is so important, why we put it where we do within the financial action plan, and why if you can take advantage of it, you should be doing so at your earliest convenience. And so I hope that you can gain a lot from this episode and gain a lot from understanding what a match is and how exactly to get it to work for you. Before we get started though, if you could go down below, hit the big red subscribe button, like this video, leave me any feedback in the comments down below, and I'll be sure to respond to anything you leave down there. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify podcasts, then be sure to subscribe and review the podcast on either one of those platforms. Follow me on social media at MNO with Dylan, and that's really good supplemental materials to all the things I'm putting out in these long form episodes on both YouTube and the podcast every single day. And then if you need somebody to help you to build a plan that is specific to yours and your family's specific financial needs, I can help you do so. Just go to my website, www.mnowithdylan.com. Click on the Work with Dylan tab, and you can choose the financial coaching session type that would work best for you, and we can begin pushing towards your long-term financial goals together. Now we know that pensions are almost gone, right? And if you don't know what a pension is just a company, whatever company you retired from or worked for, paying you a systematic payout of income in retirement. And most pensions last the remainder of your life. And so they pay you an income in retirement, even though you no longer work for them. Well, pensions are basically gone. Pensions, since the late 1990s, have fallen away in some of the largest numbers we have ever seen. And in place of those pensions, a lot of these employers are replacing pensions with better benefits when it comes to their employer-sponsored retirement accounts. Things like 401ks, 403bs, TSPs, things of the like. And they are making those benefits better on a broad scale. Now, what this means is, right, they are no longer paying into a pension for you. They're no longer taking money out of your check to pay into a pension and managing that pension fund for you and then paying you out in the pension. Now, I'm not saying that no companies do that, but I am saying that most companies have stopped doing that. And most companies have moved toward the model of matching 401ks, 403bs, and other employer-sponsored retirement accounts in lieu of doing any type of pension. And what this looks like is if I have a 401k, meaning I have an employer-sponsored retirement account, and I am putting money into that 401k or 403b or whatever it might be, I'm putting money into it, and it's a certain percentage of my income. Well, a match is going to match with employer funds, right? The employer is going to put in a certain amount of money that matches a given percentage of what you put in. So matches can vary in the way that they look and the way that they operate. But some of the most traditional matches are things like a just straight up 4% match, right? And a 4% match would look something like this. If you make $100,000 a year, just for easy math, right? You may make less than this, more than this, whatever it may be. But just for the easy math, we'll say you make $100,000 a year. If you make $100,000 a year, 4% of your annual salary is $4,000. And if you take that $4,000 and divide it out by the number of paychecks you get, or the number of times that the 401k deduction is made from your check, right? Let's say you get paid twice a month. Well, if you get paid twice a month, that's going to look like $166.66, right? Because you take the 4,000 divided out by 12 months, and that gives you $333.33 per month, and then divide by 2, that gives you $166.66. And that means that every single check, if you are putting in at least $166.66 into your 401k, then your employer, if they have a 4% match, is also going to put in $166.66. Now, very often you will hear me calling this free money. I call this free money because all it requires you to do is invest some money that you are going to get to keep in the long run anyway. So if you are going to get to keep the money anyway, and they are giving you more money on top of money that you're already going to be able to keep, then it seems like free money to me, right? But you have to have a long-term viewpoint in order to see it is free money being offered to you by your employer. And obviously it does require something from you. It requires your action. It requires you to invest a certain amount in order to get it. Now, a lot of employers, right, they may, if you don't meet the whole 4%, right, they may offer, whatever you do put in, they will match up to 4%, right? So they just won't match anything you put in over the 4%, which is pretty standard. Then there are other employers that will do things like they'll do 50% matches. So if you put in, 6% of your salary, they'll put in 3, or if you put in 8, they'll put in 4, and they'll cap it at a certain amount. So, I've seen matches before that say, we'll do 50% of your salary up to 6%. So that means once you get to 12% of your salary put in, then they will put in 6, and that is the most that they will put in. And you can put in however much you want to, up to the contribution limits of the employer-sponsored retirement account that you are saving into. And the benefits of the match are just unmatched, right? You can really do a lot of damage as far as building long-term wealth if you have a match available to you, and especially a good match. I mean, I've seen some matches that are like 10%, right? And it's just crazy that much free money is being offered, but taking advantage of that is so huge. And that is why, if you notice in the financial action plan, I put taking the match, getting this match from your employer as the third part of the financial action plan. I have this before paying off debt. I have this before we are paying off our home. I have this before we are fully funding our emergency fund. And why is that? Because it is free money. You cannot be stepping over free money on your way to financial freedom. It is absolutely vital that you can take as much free money as you can and get money compounding for you. And that's the whole point. I don't expect you in that third step, and I don't want you to, right? If you don't have a match, I don't want you to be investing. I don't want you to invest a lot of money in that third part of the financial action plan. I just want you to put in the amount to get the most free money that you can, right? So if you've got a 4% match, then put in enough money in your 401k to get that 4% match, no more, no less. And that will allow you to get all the free money. And you know that the first part of the financial action plan is just to create the unique monthly budget. The second part is to get that beginner emergency fund working for you. And then in that third part, when you are beginning to take this match, then you are starting to have dollar bills compounding for you for your future. You are compounding money for your future and building up a nest egg, as small as it may be as you're putting in these relatively small contributions right now. But that is perfectly fine. Put in that money, get the free money back, and then you can do things like pay off debt, build up your emergency fund, and then later on, when we get to the sixth part of the financial action plan, when you're putting at least 15% of your income away for your future, at that point, you can start throwing a lot of money into your retirement accounts and really blowing up the totals. But if you can get started early, we've talked before about how starting early is so very important. Starting early allows your money to compound so much more. And so being able to start early and just start putting that money away into an employer-sponsored retirement account that has a match is so big and can be the difference in being a millionaire or not as it goes down the line into your financial future. Now, a couple cool features of the 401k match or the 403b match, whatever employer-sponsored retirement account you are a part of that has this match. Some of the cool things about them are that even though you have contribution limits as far as what you can put into a 401k over the course of a year, right? And that's capped at $19,500 right now for the year 2021. That's the max that you can put in. And I know many people aren't going to meet that, but a lot of people are. A lot of people are going to meet that amount of contribution. Well, the cool thing is that is not the cap for your contributions, including your matching contributions, right? Including the match that is put in by your employer. The total contributions that you can put in, including the employer match, are up to $58,000 or 100% of your compensation, whichever one is less for the year 2021. And so this means that if you are getting a, let's say, a 1-to-1 match on your 401k, right? If you put in, 5%, they'll put in 5%, or you put in 6%, they'll put in 6%, right? You can end up getting a lot of free money and not being limited by the IRS as to the amount of money that you can put in, up to $58,000. And $58,000 is an extremely high contribution limit overall. And so, if you can even put in the contribution limit of the money that you are allowed to contribute, not just the overall contribution limit, then you're going to be able to go far financially. But if you can get anywhere close to this $58,000, including your employer match, then you can go extremely far. But this is a cool characteristic because you are not held back by the amount of money that your employer can put in most cases. And so that is pretty cool. Now, the matching contributions are a bit different than the contributions that you make in many cases. Now, 401ks or 403bs or TSPs or whatever nowadays typically offer a Roth option. Now, I know yesterday we talked about Roth IRAs, but Roth employer-sponsored retirement accounts are very similar in nature, right? You put in after-tax money, the money grows tax-free, you have tax-free withdrawals later on. Now, there are also traditional 401ks, 403bs, TSPs, things of the like, where you get tax deductions for putting the money in today. The money grows tax deferred. And then when you take the money out, you are taxed at your income tax rate. Well, all matching contributions, regardless of whether or not you're putting money into a Roth 401k or not, all matching contributions are going to be pre-tax because they are a tax deduction for whatever company you are working for. Whatever company you work for, the money that they put in, they are actually getting a tax deduction on that money. And the only way that they can do that is by keeping it as pre-tax money. So even if you are putting money into a Roth 401k, so like via my wife's work, I've told you this, she is offered a 401k that has a match, right? And that match is 4%. And so she puts money into a Roth 401k, but the employer match, right, the employer contribution that they put in is always pre-tax. And so one day, right, when we have to, deal with this money, we have to, use this money for retirement or whatever it may be, then that money is going to be taxable to us, right? That money, it will grow tax deferred and you can take it out and it can be taxable. Or at some point you can convert that money into Roth by paying the taxes and converting that to Roth. I talked a little bit about Roth conversions yesterday, and as I said, you need a good CPA if you want to make sure that you do that correctly and don't incur any big, unforeseen penalties or tax bills as well. So that is also an interesting characteristic of the employer match, is that it is all pre-tax money, and you need to make sure that in your mind you can keep the two buckets apart. That way, if you ever roll that money, you leave that job, you roll that money into, IRAs, that that even if you have a Roth 401k, that the matching portions need to go into a traditional IRA when they're rolled, and the Roth portion can go into a Roth IRA when rolled. The money has to be with other money that is treated alike when it comes to taxes. And so that is important to keep in mind. Now, another thing that is important to note about 401ks in general, but especially when it comes to the match, is that there are typically vesting schedules. Now, some employers do not have these vesting schedules, but many of them do. So what a vesting schedule is, right, it is the degree of ownership you have in an employer's contributions based on the number of years of your employment. Right? So if you've been working for a company for a designated number of years, you can have, typically vesting schedules work as percentages, right? You can get percentages of the employer contribution to be a part of the actual balance that you quote unquote own, right? Up until a certain number of years you've worked there, and then you are fully vested and all employer contributions are yours. Now, like I said, some employers don't have vesting schedules. You're 100% vested at the very beginning. Some you aren't vested at all and then you work there for a certain number of years and you're 100% vested all at once. But many of them, it'll work on like a 3-year or a 5-year scale where, let's say a 5-year scale where you get 20% of vesting every single year. So obviously any money that you are putting in to your 401k, that is money that is yours, right? They can't say you don't have access to your own money. You can't, if you leave the job, you can't take your own money with you. But if you leave the job before you are fully vested or before you are vested in the matching contributions at all, then you can't take those matching contributions with you. This is just a way that employers are trying to make sure that you're not just in it for the benefit, right? That you will actually stick around, that you're actually, a part of the company, that you're actually invested in what is going on within the company and not just taking the benefit and trying to run with it. And so they make you vest up. And then if you are to leave that job, then you can take that money with you. And that is just a safety mechanism for the company. And basically just saying, hey, you can have our money, but you have to be able to put in enough time with us. And it's a decent idea. It's a pretty good idea. But a lot of people who thought that they had all this money saved in their 401k over a short period of time, they ended up getting bitten when they changed jobs because they didn't recognize that the vesting schedule was what it was and that they were not fully vested into the employer contributions. Okay, so let's just look for the sake of being able to just realize how powerful the match is. Let's look at some numbers, okay? And let's just revert back to the example that I gave earlier of somebody making $100,000 a year, right? And they are getting a 4% employer match. And so that 4% match, right, would be $4,000 a year or $333.33 per month or $166.66 per every 2 weeks, right? Every paycheck. So that's more bi-monthly, right? That's 24 times per year, but we'll just stick with that. And if you run those numbers out, if you say, okay, you get a 4% match and you continue getting that 4% match over the course of a 40-year career, right? And you make the prevailing market rate of around 10% that has been earned over time, right? That means your employer can give you, right, in that money, and your money can grow to over $2.1 million over the course of your working lifetime. Now, I know this is not necessarily the case for everyone. So let's just say that it's not $100,000. Let's say that it's a $50,000 income, then you are left with a little over $1 million, all from employer contributions. And that is absolutely huge. That is a huge amount of money that you get just because you took advantage of the match over time. And that's why I want you to take advantage of the match early, because any time that you waste taking that free money is going to be time that you don't get compounding for you, and you don't get the full benefit of the employer match over time. And the employer match is just so invaluable. And that is just based on the match, right? We're not even talking about the other money that you put in. So let's just say that you just put in up to the match for your entire career, right? Let's say for 40 years, you put in just up to the match and you made $50,000 for 40 years in a row, right? This is not a realistic thing, but let's just say this is the case. Well, you would be left with over $2.1 million total, right? And then the $2.1 million from somebody making $100,000 a year that you would have accumulated from the match, that person would have over $4.2 million when it came time to retire, just from taking advantage of the match and putting in the contributions that allowed them to get the match. And this is so huge. This can't be overlooked. This is free money that can make you a millionaire. And if you are stepping over free money that can make you a millionaire, one, you're bold, right? I mean, why would anybody choose to step over free money that would make them a millionaire? And then two, you may have your priorities out of order, right? You may not have the correct long-term thinking in place. You may not have the understanding of exactly what compound interest can do for you over time, because it can do an immense amount in order to make you wealthy in the long term and build up a nest egg that is necessary for you to be able to live on over time, especially, as I talked about earlier, as there are no pensions really anymore. I mean, there are some, but pensions are a rarity. And then Social Security is, a very limited amount. And, you have to think, where else am I going to get my money from? It is going to be up to you to save money and invest for your future. And the employer match is a huge benefit that these companies offer that if you can take advantage of, can make you a millionaire on its own, not even including the money that you are putting away into it. So it's absolutely huge and can make a huge difference in your ability to build long-term wealth. Now then, here is a really important question that you need to ask yourself if you are investing. Let's say you get to the sixth part of the financial action plan and you are investing at least 15% of your income for your future. If you are doing that, then that means that you're probably putting in more money than will be matched by an employer in a matching contribution. And so you have to ask yourself, well, should I keep putting money away into an employer-sponsored retirement account on top of the amount that will actually be matched? And the answer is maybe, right? The answer is maybe, and you need to look at what the benefits and what the costs are of doing so. So I'm gonna give you a few guidelines that I like to use, and just, you can use them for what you may, but these are a couple guidelines I like to use to decide what account I'm going to put money in, especially when I have an employer match. So if an employer offers you a match, right, obviously you take it, right? That is a part of the financial action plan. You take the match, okay? Then let's say you get to the sixth part of the financial action plan. You're like, okay, time to invest more. Should I just put more money on top of that match? Well, you ask yourself, one, can I contribute to a Roth IRA? And if I can, if my income is below the income limits to where we don't have to mess with the backdoor strategy or anything like that. If my income is below the income limits and I can put money in a Roth IRA, then I would go there. And I would say, okay, let's put money in a Roth IRA. And for a married couple, you can put $6,000 per year per individual right now. And then if you're 50 or older, you can put $7,000 per year per individual. And this is huge, right? And so you can put money into the Roth IRA, get the tax-free growth and the tax-free withdrawals later on. And that is also so you can have more control over your money. IRAs are just more control over your money because you have better ability to decide what it is invested in than you do within a 401k where you're given some type of predetermined options. And so I would go, okay, Roth IRA, do I have it? Can I contribute to it? Okay, cool, right? And I go ahead and do that. Then I would say, okay, if I'm going to invest more than what I can put into Roth IRAs, can I put money into a Roth 401k? Do I have the access to a Roth 401k? Is that what you're using to get that match anyway? And let's say you can't put money in a Roth IRA because of the income limit, right? Let's say that you can't put money directly into it. Then I would go to the Roth 401k because it does not have income limits. You can put in money to a Roth 401k regardless of what your income is. And so I would continue with the Roth 401k in that way as you push forward because, again, the tax-free nature of Roth is going to do better than having the flexibility of an IRA, but having your money in traditional accounts that are pre-tax. And so I would keep pushing towards the Roth 401k. Now, let's say I can't put money in a Roth IRA. I don't have access to a Roth 401k. Now what? Well, then I would go a traditional IRA. Above your match, I would go to a traditional IRA. Again, because of the flexibility that's offered above a traditional 401k or employer-sponsored retirement account. So I would put money into a traditional IRA. Go ahead and make those contributions. And then if you can work with a good CPA, work on converting those to Roth, right? Converting those into a Roth IRA and allowing that money to, again, grow tax-free and be able to take tax-free withdrawals later on. But again, work with a good CPA. Make sure that you do the backdoor Roth strategy correctly in order to get that money in a tax-free nature. And if you just want to directly, contribute to a traditional IRA, I get it. Get the tax deduction, especially if you are older and higher income earning years. The tax deduction may be worth it for you. So do the pre-tax into the traditional IRA, let it grow there. And then the last thing I would look at is any traditional employer-sponsored accounts that you have. And now, obviously, you have one if you are getting the match. And so you should be taking advantage of that as much as you can. And then obviously any other overflow investing that you want to do, you can do so into a taxable brokerage account, which is obviously not going to have any income limits or any contribution limits or anything like that. But the money is going to be taxable as far as the growth over time. Any realized gains are going to be taxable, and so you can expect that as you move forward with that type of investing. But this is how I think about it, because I am looking for a couple things. I am looking for the most money that I can get put away, so the match, right? I'm looking for a tax-free nature, the Roth, right? And then if I can't get tax-free nature, I want at least tax deferred in a traditional. Okay. And then if I can't at least get tax deferred, then I just want to be putting money away and allowing money to compound at a high rate for me over time. And if you can do that, right, regardless of what account you have available to you, regardless of the advantages that you have available, you can build wealth over the long term. You have plenty of options in order to do so, no matter what your income is, no matter what your current situation is. And if you have the ability to take advantage of a match, you need to do it, because that money can grow and compound for you over time. And leaving free money on the table, especially when it comes to investing, is just a bad idea. So thanks for watching this episode. If you could go down below, hit the big red subscribe button, like this video, leave me any feedback in the comments down below, and I'll be sure to respond to anything you leave down there. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify podcasts, then be sure to subscribe and review the podcast on either one of those platforms. Follow me on social media at MNO with Dylan, and that's really good supplemental materials to all the things I'm putting out in these long form episodes on YouTube and the podcast every single day. And then if you need somebody to help you build a plan that is specific to your life and your family's current situation, then I can help you do that. Just go to my website, www.MNOwithDylan.com. Click on the Work with Dylan tab, and you can choose the financial coaching session type that would work best for you, and we can begin pushing towards your long-term financial goals together. So tune in tomorrow as we talk specifically about how money grows and how your investments grow over time. And we'll dig into some of those basics, and hopefully you can better understand how you are making gains that you are actually making over time. So thanks for tuning into this episode of Money's No Object. I'm your host, Dylan Howell. God bless.